Now, who are the winners and losers of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? This is the question many investors home and abroad are asking. It's been a month since the Single Trade Pact started, and these have been the major achievements, as you can see on your screen shortly. First of all has been the finalization of some of the protocols. The second being the operationalization of the bill, which has seen all member states signing on to this particular pact have to begin the process of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. The third is the live trade activity of some Ghanaian industries as Casapreco at the various ports. We did see and hear from Casapreco authorities saying that they had to import these things without having to pay quotas. You can see on your screens once again the activity of the Continental Free Trade Agreement in the first month of January. 3 major events happening so far. But we are joined by Adwoa Ejechum. She's the founder and CEO of EBII Group. Also, do we have Sechuma Kwabwa, the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries. We're grateful that you joined us, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start off with you, Adwoa. Of course, the elimination of tariffs under the single market will necessarily reduce Africa's government fiscal resources. We do know, Adwoa, that all other things being equal, this means that there will be diminished public funds available for trade adjustment assistance. UNCTAD has estimated that this reduction will be more than $4 billion annually continent-wide. The question to you, Adwoa, is that how can member states strike a balance to offset the risks?
Thank you very much. Thank you. So first of all, I would say I'm not entirely sure how these figures came about, because if you look at the figures that have been produced, according to the World Bank, there will be 100 million people be lifted out of poverty by 2035 if this AfCFTA is implemented successfully. And also, according to the AfCFTA themselves, they projected $450 billion gains from the free trade, with the free trade area going ahead as well. And then also, $292 billion will come from greater trade facilitation. So what what I want to say is that regardless of how much is going to be lost, you can clearly see that the gains far more outweighs the loss. Another thing I will focus on also is in terms of addressing any revenues lost at all, if that's significant to most people. It would be for the governments, the different governments across the African continent, designing programs that will increase the readiness of their workforce to take advantage of the opportunities that the African Continental Free Trade Area present. And that would mean providing training on skill set, as well as the need to prioritize industrialization, which that will ensure that they maximize the benefits that is presented within the free trade area. So that's all I would say for that question. Thank you.
Great, but we do know, Adwoa, that the single African market agreement is coming on board not just to cover the larger industries or manufacturing giants, but as well that of low-skill industries. And it begs the question, how best can they explore financing options in order for them to scale up and compete?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're right. The SME market, so the small to medium-sized market, do make up about 80% of businesses across the African continent. And then they also employ not less than 70% of the continent's workforce. So it is very critical that for the AfCFTA to be successful, of course, the SME market need access to relevant financing. There are several ways that this could be done. I know that currently the African Development Bank, they do have a program that is supporting African local financial institutions with long-term liquidity and also technical assistance. And that's to support them in terms of providing the relevant funding that is required for the small to medium-sized businesses. Also, another thing would be for formalizing a lot of these small to medium-sized companies. The majority of them operate within the informal economy, and that then makes it very difficult for them to have any access to funding. Currently, the figure stands around 66% of total employment is within the sub-Saharan Africa from the SME market, as well as 52% in North Africa. So once we formalize most of these SME companies, then it makes it easier for them to have access to some funding from a lot of these relevant institutions. The third point that I'll make is also support in terms of risk management. So I sit in the UK, and from what I do, a lot of the investors, not just within UK, but also within the African continent, finds it very difficult to invest or put funding within the SME because the risk so they are not comfortable in terms of how the risk could be managed. One of the reasons is being that the SME markets are not very much aware or educated as much or have sufficient information in terms of how to manage their risk or even have a global mindset when they start a business in order to be presented well to these investors so that they can get comfortable in terms of putting their money into their businesses. So those are the three areas that I will point out. First of all, the risk management is one thing, educating them about the risk management. Secondly, the African Development Bank initiative, which is already underway. And then thirdly, also making sure the fact that both the local institutions and the foreign institutions all have a role to play in supporting these SME getting the right level of funding. Thank you. Great
submission there, Joe. We're so grateful that you joined us. But we also do have the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, Sechuma Kwaba. Mr. Kwaba, we're grateful once again that you could make it for this particular interaction. First of all, you have been at the forefront, the AGI, championing the rights and even the capabilities of various industries, whatnot, following the onset of AfCFTA. Now we are a month into the entire single African market agreement. What has been your assessment so far?
Well, thank you very much. I think so far our assessment is that it has been good. The few companies that have experimented it, that have tried it, they've gone through smoothly. There were no hitches, and therefore we think that the countries are compliant. And therefore, we are comfortable with what is going on. We also notice that when it comes to the customs procedure and all that, the ICAM has actually been integrated into the GRA export and import procedure for the AfCFTA. And therefore, as far as procedure for going through exporting is concerned, I think everything has been ironed, and so far, it is looking positive.
But what have industries been telling you? We do know of Casapreco, as you rightly stated, they had a smooth time at the ports under the AfCFTA. What have other industries been telling you regarding the smoothness of the single market agreement?
We are still monitoring those who are exporting. Not many have successfully gone through yet, so we don't have too many cases to cite. But in the case of Casapreco and then Gandor Cosmetics that tried the first one, they went through smoothly. We are gathering information from the rest of our members, both in the SME category and in the large-scale companies who are doing regular exporting and taking advantage of the market opportunity to see whether they are having any challenges along the line. So far, we've not had any information to the negative, and therefore we assume that it is going on smoothly. But we need to be monitoring as we go along.
Let's end up on this note. Ajua, extensively spoke about how to minimize risks. From your purview as the Association of Ghana Industries, what message do you have for low-skilled industries on how best they can compete and minimize their risks?
Thank you.
I think when it comes to risk minimization, it comes in different forms, both at the enterprise level, at the institutional level, at the government level, and at the CFTA level. At the enterprise level, as an individual enterprise, your strategy should be to be able to increase your capacity so that you can actually export. If you don't do that, your market, even your local market, will be taken away.
Sure.
If you don't have a number of companies that have been prepared and their capacity enhanced to be able to export to other markets, your own market will be taken away. Government will lose revenue and so on and so forth. So I think that when it comes to strategy to minimize risk, first of all, we should develop the capacity of the enterprises.
All right.
Let them produce scale, larger scale enterprise, so that they can actually enjoy the economies of scale. We also need to enhance our export capacity by way of strategizing to enter the export market within the West African and the African market as a whole. If we sit down and then we try to do business as usual and we don't harness those markets, our market will be taken away and we will not take advantage of the other markets. The other factor, which I think is very important, and it's something that AGI continuously hammers, is the business environment. Again, the name of the game is about competitiveness. If you don't have a conducive business environment that enables you to produce at the minimal cost, then it means that your cost of production is high, the price of your product will be high, and therefore you become uncompetitive, both within your market and the export market. In the export market, or in every market, two factors are always considered. The price of two key factors. And these factors are highly dependent on the business environment.
Okay.
So we need to improve the business environment, improve the cost of production so that you are competitive.
All right. Okay, Mr. Kwaba, we're so grateful that you joined us, and as well, Ajwa, the founder of EBIR Group, we're grateful for your analysis on this.